Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Mr. Rowe. We're looking at Intermediate Algebra, Part A. This is lesson number 9, the heart of the matter. I'm going to go through a couple of the examples and show you how I need to see it work. Getting a lot of different things, just answers, describing it, but it clearly says in the directions, show the work as it's demonstrated in the lesson. So let me show you what I will accept and give you a grade for. So here are some examples. Here is one like number 4. So it's a two-step equation. So with a two-step equation, you've got to undo addition and subtraction first, and then undo either multiplication or division. So in this case, we have subtracting 9 from each side, or excuse me, subtracting 6 from each side. So we're going to add 6 to each side. That's going to be our inverse operation. And when we do that, those are going to cancel. Negative 24 plus 6 is negative 18. And that's going to be 9x equals negative 18. And we have multiplication now. So our inverse operation would be to divide both sides by 9. And so x will finally equal negative 2. So that's example number 1. Okay, here's our second example. This one is like number 5. So very similar problem. Anytime you have stuff on both sides that will simplify, that's always going to be your first step. So in my first step here, I'm going to combine anything that will combine on both sides. So let's start on the right hand side. I've got 6 squared, which is 36. I've got 2 times 24, so 2 times 12, which is 24. That is going to simplify to equal 12. On the left, I've got x plus 2x, which is 3x. And so now I'm going to cancel out multiplication and division. So since I have multiplication, I'm going to divide. And so my final answer is x equals 4. All right, next example. This time we have a fraction. If you review the lesson again, you'll see that when you have fractions, you were showed a method. I'm going to show you that method again. So anytime you have fractions, I know everybody would prefer not to work with fractions, or most people would. I don't care if there's a fraction or not, but I'm going to show you how to cancel out fractions first. So what you do here is you multiply by the LCD. In this case, since there is only one fraction, the LCD will be the denominator of that fraction. So I'm going to multiply both sides of this equation by that denominator, which in this case is 7. So what does that do? If I distribute that 7, I get 7 times x over 7. I'm going to write that 7 a little bit smaller so I can do some work with it in here in just a second. And then 7 times 5. And then on the other side, I've got negative 6 times 7 times x. And I just went ahead and wrote out the whole step. And now I'm going to simplify. So what happens over here is these 7's will cancel out because 7 divided by 7 is 1. So we're just left with x right there. 7 times 5 is 35. Equals negative 6 times 7, which is negative 42x. And so now it's a matter of getting everything on one side. Typically what I would say to do is to take the smaller variable and move it to the side with a larger variable. But because the variable negative 42x is already over there by itself, In this case, I would go against that rule and subtract x from each side. And that's going to leave me with 35 equals negative 43x. And then I have one step left, which is to divide by negative 43. And that's going to leave me with a final answer of x equals negative 35 over 43. And yes, it's okay if it's a fraction. Fractions are numbers. They are real numbers. They are rational numbers. They are fine. Don't think you're wrong just because you get a fraction. And here is a little more complicated example. This will be like number 7. So what we got here is we've got a whole bunch of stuff that needs to combine. We got variables on both sides. We got 2 sets of parentheses. So we've got a lot of stuff to do here. So anytime you see parentheses with a number outside, step 1 is always to distribute. So we're going to distribute that 3 to these two terms. We're going to distribute this. We're going to make it or treat it like it's negative 2. And we're going to distribute that to these two things. So on that step, we're going to end up with 3x plus 12 minus 4x. Negative 2 times 2 is negative 4. Minus 2, because negative 2 times positive 1 is negative 1. Or excuse me, negative 2. Okay, the second step on any multi-step equation is to look at both sides and combine what you can combine. So step 1, distribute. Step 2, combine like terms. So I have like terms here and here. I also have like terms here and here. Now I can't combine stuff on the opposite side. I can only combine terms on the same side. So if you're confused by that, just draw a line right here. It's like a wall. We can't do anything across the wall. We can only work on the wall. We have to do opposites to move across the wall. So when we combine these terms, 3x minus 4x is negative x, negative 1x. 12 minus 2, that's going to be plus 10. And we have our equal sign, and we didn't change anything on this side. All right, so step 1, distribute. Step 2, combine like terms. Step 3 on any multi-step equation is to move the variables to one side. And this is where I like to move the smaller variable to the larger side. So in this case, negative 2 is smaller than negative x, so I'm going to add 2x to each side. So those are going to cancel. And that's going to leave me with negative x plus 2x is positive x. And on the other side, I've got negative 5. And look, at this point, so step 1, distribute. Step 2, combine like terms on the same side. Step 3, collect the variables on one side. After that, everything should be a 1 or 2-step equation. So this one turns out to be a 1-step equation. I'm going to subtract 10 from each side. And x is going to equal negative 15. All right, next example. And I'm just throwing this in so you can see if this happens, you'll know what to do. All right, so this one is a lot like the last one, a little less complicated. So go through my steps, and I'm going to write those down on the next slide so you don't forget. That's a good note to keep. I'm going to distribute this, and I'm going to distribute that. First step is always to distribute. So we end up with 8, because I haven't done anything in that first 8, minus 8x minus 3. On the opposite side, I end up with negative 8x minus 16. There's an x there. Okay, now, if you're paying attention, right now you ought to notice something that's a little bit odd. There are negative 8x's on both sides, and that's the only variable. That's going to mean something for you in the future, but we're going to go ahead and go through the steps. So step 1, distribute. Step 2, combine terms. The only like terms I have in this particular problem is this 8 minus 3, which is negative 5, or excuse me, positive 5. So I got negative 8x plus 5 equals negative 8x minus 16. Now this should be a little more clear as to what's about to happen. Because if I move my variable to the same side, which is step 3, they cancel out on both sides, leaving me with 5 equals negative 16. That is a false statement, so this will have no solution. All right, so that's the process I need to see on each one of those problems. I'm going to throw this on this next slide to give you the steps. And actually, I don't have another slide. So I'm going to stop sharing this for a second and just share my whiteboard to write this step down, because this is the rules every time. Step 1, distribute both sides, and this is if necessary. All right, step 2, combine like terms on the same side. I'm going to try to type this out. But I said you can't move across that wall. We're going to make a wall and we're not going to cross it. Step 3. In this step, we're going to collect the variables or move the variables to one side. And this will be by addition or subtraction. And once you get here, I'm not going to write step 4 out. I'm just going to tell you what it is. Step 4 is to solve one or two-step equation. So that is all the rules. So now, I hope this helps you out with what you got to show your work to get full credit. If you're still struggling or have questions, please contact me in the teacher message or set up an appointment for a help session.